DMV Shop Spotlight. I'm your host, Jacqueline Matter. For the next half hour, we're sharing the stories of the stores you all know and love. Plus, we'll take a look at some stops you might want to add to your next weekend trip. Let's start things off with a look at our shop stops. The museum, I Am a Sandwich, Three Sisters, The Spice Suite, Burnbox Pizza, and Hiraya. Fox 5's photojournalist Jesse Burkett Hall will take us to these locations. Let's go.
We've always been in apparel, always. He was known uptown for what I was doing in Southeast, and we mirrored each other.
I used to hear about a kid that was from the other side who they would always compare me to.
Myself being from Southeast DC.
I'm originally from uptown off of 14th Street Northwest.
He was known uptown for what I was doing in Southeast, and we mirrored each other.
The whole city just used to talk about, you know, us going against each other, who's better. It was kind of rare for a kid from uptown and a kid from Southeast to kind of hang together, and we've been kicking it ever since 13 years old.
We were actually in the music business. We were a part of a coalition that worked with Wale called the Board Administration. We had a ton of artists that were signed to us, and we traveled the world with Wale. I believe at the top of the food chain for millennial hip-hop music to come out of Washington, D.C.
Probably like 8-9 years, maybe, consecutively. And we decided to do clothing because we all kind of love clothing, but I really, really love clothing.
We came back home from Atlanta, and we saw that the city was gentrifying at a rapid pace.
It's crazy that the clothing brands here that we grew up on, that represented the city, are no longer here.
We didn't see the Universal Madness on Georgia Avenue. We didn't see Shooter Sports on Pennsylvania Avenue anymore, and it ripped our heart apart.
So then he was like, man, we should just do our own brand. We came up with the name, sat down, came up with the logo, and then we told it to our friends. We said, everybody, this is our next thing.
We wanted to make sure that, you know, we had a place where all of our history can be safeguarded, especially streetwear. And so where do you safeguard history? Where's all of your prized possessions, your artifacts is in a museum. And so if you take the first 4 letters in the word museum, it spells muse, which means a source of inspiration. And so we wanted to use art, fashion, to be a source of inspiration to unify the community. You take the colors in our logo, they represent the train system here. The train system, the red line, the green line, the blue line, the orange line. That's our train system, and those are our colors. And so those colors represent unification.
You want 2X in the black pants?
We started our brand in 2015.
We found this location. We built it out. We exhausted all our funds on the build out.
Right on Rhode Island Avenue, 2014 Rhode Island in the Northeast. So some of the first products that we rolled out was our snapback.
We're gonna do this marketing thing around this hat, because Greg had this thing always of saying like he wanted our hat to be like what the Yankee fitted was to New York.
When you see that logo, it's synonymous with success. And naturally, it became our postcard, right? That's our business card. After we sold so many snapbacks, people started to say, hey, I need a shirt with that hat.
When we dropped our first collection, which consisted of like a hoodie, crew neck, 3 sweatsuits, I think like a hat and a sock, and we had like a 90% sale through in one day, to the point where we couldn't open the next day because we ain't have enough clothes.
And then they wanted accessories, socks, lanyards, keychains, right?
We sell Letterman jackets. And some days you just look up like, one, having a sneaker, a player exclusive with the greatest shooter of all times. You know what I mean? For him to wear your chain, for him to wear your clothes in the playoffs on his way to the game in the tunnel. Like some of them moments is like, wow.
We both came up in humble beginnings, right? Very humble beginnings on extreme sides of the city. And we met together, right, to unify the city. Our story, I think is contagious. And it's the reason why you can look to your left and your right, and maybe out of every 10 people, at least 5 will have Museum DC on.
What you know about good food? Our shrimp, and then our General sauce. We knew I was gonna do a pop-up, get the drip. And we knew it was gonna be sandwiches. It's all about that cross section. We couldn't come up with a name, so we just drew names on a card and just drew names. And everyone picked their favorite, and I Am a Sandwich was the one that I ended up sticking with overall. It's a fun name because of the argument of, is a hot dog a sandwich or not? Food has always played a role in my life because it's something that I always gravitated towards, even as a kid. Since you last saw me in 2020, I've done so much and I've been through so much that I'm not gonna say I'm a completely different person, but I've learned a lot of lessons and it made me a little more wise, a little more aware, and just also more confident. My very first sandwich concept, it was between bread. So I just wanted to do a concept where I just put any and everything in between bread. So I always had the idea in the back of my mind that I wanted to do sandwiches since I first started cooking. We are here at Maddie and Eddie's every Monday from 5 to 9 p.m. Do my thing. So this is the AJ burger, my famous crab dip, shredded lettuce, and Old Bay onions. I think a sandwich can be very complex, you know? Like you can put a whole dish in between bread and it'll still work as if it was spread out on the plate. Just like my galbi steak and cheese. It's me, my love for Korean barbecue in between a sandwich I also really love, which is steak and cheese. So it's caramelized kimchi, samjang aioli, and the shredded beef is marinated like a traditional galbi marinade. So it's just like, it just works. For this concept right now, I have the AJ, which is crab dip burger, a General Tso shrimp po' boy, galbi steak and cheese, and then the banh mo. The banh mo is my take on a banh mi meets DC half smoke. They're all very unique to me in how I cook regular food. Long term, I would like to have a brick and mortar or a food stall or something to where I can give a little more life to the concept, to the idea of what it is I'm trying to do. Like I have this saying, 1% better every day. 1% a day in 365 days is a hell of a return on improvement, if you ask me. Whether I'm making a sandwich or I'm making a bowl of pasta or steak, every dish I create, I want you to be able to take away a piece of me. Like I want you to be able to eat something that I create and say, like, this is him. My mama should be proud.
I love working with my sisters. It's really fun.
It's fabulous, the synergy of all of us.
It's a small town. We know everybody.
We like to bring a little bit of everything, so we do try to accommodate to everyone.
Hi, I'm Stavroula Kukinas, and I am the youngest sister.
Hi, I'm Athena Kohilas, and I'm the middle sister.
My name is Stella, and I'm the oldest sister.
When we're actually in the store, they get so excited to see the three sisters, like, oh my gosh, you are three sisters.
Our mom had a store called Classics and Country that she started in 1985.
We'd go to the shows with her at the gift shops. We'd go buy collectibles and things of that nature.
It used to be a Christmas holiday gift shop.
Off of Richmond Highway in Alexandria.
We actually had the small store next door, and it was a home decor store, and everybody would come in and always compliment us on our clothing. It was like during September 11th, and there was restrictions in suitcases, so tourists weren't buying like bigger sized items.
With times of changing, people just loved finding things for themselves. People love buying for themselves to feel good, jewelry, clothing, and that sort of aspect. So we just kind of changed our gears a little bit and started bringing more clothing.
Right now, our best-selling item is our favorite sister t-shirt.
Come in and find your own. There's so many. Favorite daughter, favorite sisters, best sister ever. Lots of fun t-shirts here and sweatshirts you'll find here.
Well, we all have our different strengths.
My job is a little different than the sisters. I'm more the back end. I'm very good with accounting, payroll.
My strength has to do with my creativity. I'm very hands-on, and I just love aesthetics.
We do carpool together at times.
Both my sisters are married to Gus's, and they're actually neighbors, and I'm next door neighbors with my mom.
Our mom is also one of three sisters, and her two other sisters own restaurants in Old Town Alexandria. Running a small business is not a 9-to-5, it's a 24-hour job. We are literally texting, calling each other throughout the evening, bouncing ideas off each other.
We also own the Lucky Knot, which is located in Alexandria, Annapolis, Maryland, Leesburg, and Middleburg. We actually have another three sisters in Annapolis as well.
People love our price point. Our jewelry is amazing price point. Our purses are a great price point. There's just so many things you can find, and people just love that because fashion goes, it comes and goes.
We do love that we are a women-owned business. We love empowering women. We have employees that started with us 10 years ago that are still with us. They're part of the family. They are growing with us. So we really like to see the entrepreneurship of all of us, and we hope to continue growing.
Welcome back to Fox DMV Shop Spotlight. We're heading back to D.C. for this next story. Photojournalist Jessie Burkett Hall takes us to the Spice Suite.
I've been to Egypt, India, Morocco, Trinidad, Guatemala. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of all the places I've been. Curacao, all the saints, Jamaica, of course. Now I'm not as much of a novice in terms of spices. I don't just buy them wholesale anymore. I actually travel and find them and create recipes on my own. So some of the spices we have here are things like flavor in your ear, got my mojo back for city girls, mixed pepper, pass me the green, chipotle jerk, blueberry sugar. I was born and raised in Northwest Washington, D.C. I'm raised by my grandparents in a house with my brothers, cousins, uncles. I went on to complete my education in D.C. public schools and then Howard University. While I was in Howard University, I took a job at Oak Hill. It was called Oak Hill. It's now called New Beginnings, which is a youth detention center for young people who have been incarcerated. And I knew I wanted to be involved in education in some capacity, but not formally as a teacher. I was excited about the school year. I was a new assistant principal. I loved my job. I had already started to engage with my families and my kids. I was leaving the nail salon, Sassy's, and I happened to see a for lease sign at a business a couple of doors down. And I called just out of pure curiosity just to see what the rent would be. And when the landlord told me that he needed to know what I wanted to do with the space in order to tell me the rent, I was stumped because I really didn't have an idea. I was just curious about the rent because it wasn't too far from where I grew up. And so I just decided to tell him something. And that something was the most random thing I could have ever said, and it was a spice shop. Like, just tell me the price. I didn't even want it. I just wanted to know what the rent was. I didn't have a plan for it.
Top oil is useful for...
I think my passion for spices kind of evolved as I began to immerse myself in the world of spices, right? So my very first spice trip was to Puerto Rico. Everybody cooks. Everybody seasons their food, so it doesn't really matter where I go. I'm going to travel the world. I've always wanted to travel, but my passion has really come from just learning all the nuances of spices and being able to smell and taste them, and going to India and tasting a curry in India versus the curry in Trinidad or Jamaica. My motto here is food is fashion, and food is fashion comes from the notion that I don't believe in rules. I don't care that, you know, smoky is in because it's summertime. Like, we can do smoky in spring and winter too. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. Cinnamon chocolate latte, Ghanaian smoked sea salts, adobo lime. I blend in the same way that I get dressed. And so I always talk about it in the same way, where you start with like a little black dress, which is something basic, familiar, non-intimidating, easy, right? And that's something like maybe garlic. We all know garlic. Whether you love it or not, we know garlic. We know what it smells like. We have an idea of what it tastes like. And then you layer things on top of that. Smoked paprika, sea salt, cumin, coriander. These are some pretty familiar things, right? Centering Black women in particular is important for me because we need safe spaces. We need sacred spaces, and we need to be able to say that we are doing this specifically for Black women or Black businesses and not feel ashamed, right? I think so often we are scared to say that this is specifically for Black people because it might turn someone else off, or some other demographic might not want to support anymore if they think it's just for us. And I never said it was just for us, right? But this is who we are centering. And I always tell people all are welcome here, but this space was built for Black people to have a community to come to. I know that when you experience the Spice Sweet Spices, that it is something that you yearn for, and that you want again, and that you never forget. Sometimes I literally just walk in here and I'll look around like, oh my God, this is mine.
Welcome to Burnbox, how you doing? Picking up?
A little mixture on the outside, then we break it on top.
Picking up, placing the order. You got the mac and crab pizza, you got the seafood scampi, you got the honey shrimp sriracha pizza.
Man, I met Ryan.
I met Sean, it was a funny story.
Build your own? All right, cool. Give me a name for that.
It's completely a whole nother feeling when you do it with somebody you love, somebody that's your brother, and somebody that has your back. Two different things. I wouldn't want it any other way.
I actually met trying out for basketball.
All I can remember is this light-skinned kid, skinny kid. It looked like he had long feet. He was playing basketball in K-Swiss. Now, I'd never seen nobody play basketball in K-Swiss before. I remember he did one move, and it was a spin move, and he had the crowd going crazy.
I made the team that year.
And I got cut.
But the next year is when he made the team, and it was like from that point on, from that 10th grade on, like we kind of always been partners with whatever we did. I got an early itch that just doing a normal 9 to 5 just probably wasn't my thing. I went more to doing the entrepreneur thing, and eventually he left his job.
I always had problems working for somebody, right? And the problem was that I wanted to be the boss.
Maybe about 2000, we decided to get into the fashion industry.
We had an opportunity to open up a store called Next Level. It was a clothing store.
That clothing venture with Next Level ended up turning into a brand that we created, 2 brands. One was called Cartoon Classics, and then another one was called Mijay Mikasa.
That first show at the Magic, we did maybe like 700,000 in sales.
At that time, I feel like we both kind of ventured on to like go different directions. He was working in South Jersey, close to Philly. And when he was living there, he actually would go to the gym at LA Fitness, and next door was a Smoothie King. So one day he called me and was like, I think I know what our next thing is gonna be.
1, 2, 3, Smoothie King!
We figured out a lot of things and how to like acquire different locations. We got the 3, and then within 2 years, we had 6.
We learned as much as we could learn, and we said, you know what? It's time to try to make a difference in our community.
So I'm gonna add some diced chicken on here.
So we started Burnbox 2 years ago. So that would be 2020, I think 2020. It's going on year 3.
You got the loco elote pizza. You got our green monster. We got our crab catcher.
We have gourmet pizzas that you typically can't get anywhere else.
The Lucky Barbecue, Alfredo's wife. You got to meet me up.
So Burnbox Pizza is a fast casual pizza restaurant that allows you to build your own pizza.
So it's brown on this side, but I wanted to be a little bit more brown on this side.
We use brick ovens, and at the same time, we offer fresh salads. We offer brick oven wings.
So right now, we have a serious hunger crisis that's going on. And we said, you know what? How can we be part of that? You know, how can we help solve that? That's what makes Burnbox different from anybody else, right? Is that our heart is number 1, right? For every pizza we sell, we donate a pizza back. Hunger crisis is number 1. But we believe that if you do good, good things will come.
I grew up without a dad, right? And a lot of time, God puts people in your life for different reasons. And I was with him when he lost his dad. God doesn't make mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, he automatically knows that if you don't have this, I need to give you this. You know what I mean? So that's the sentimental part about the story between us, is that it's for life.
Welcome back to the DMV Shop Spotlight. From restaurant worker to restaurateur, photojournalist Jesse Burkett Hall shares the story of Hiraya.
This is the Turon with the napkin, the regular one.
We're here at Hiraya Cafe and Restaurant.
Order for Catherine.
We opened in September 30th.
So you don't have the cold brew yet?
I've always wanted to kind of venture out on my own.
I'll put ice and pump it.
Eventually create a restaurant that kind of represented, you know, where we came from, which is the Philippines, and just showcase our rich, diverse culture. I was 13 when we migrated to California, Los Angeles. I was just always curious as to why there was no upscale Filipino restaurant. It was always like the mom and pop joints.
So take me back to 2014 when you decided to move to Washington.
I was supposed to just visit my cousins for 2 weeks, and I just never returned my flight back home, to be honest. Like, I called my mom and I told her to ship my knives, and then I stayed here. When I first got to DC, I worked at Vidalia on M Street. I worked at Bad Saint. After Bad Saint, I worked at Restaurant Eve with Chef Armstrong, Kaliwa, Maddie and Eddie's in Arlington. It all happened 2020. My wife and I were at the living room at our condo at the time. I wanted to open a Filipino restaurant. That's it. I didn't know what it was gonna be. I didn't think of a cafe. Growing up with Filipino cuisine, man, like, it's one of those things where it kind of brings a lot of people, you know, like back home. Every time we would eat, it would be like in a big, long table, and then you'd see a bunch of food, and then it's just a bunch of family. Like, all my relatives just in one dining room. And then you have a chori peanut allergy and a pork belly peanut allergy. For me, I wanted to kind of bring that nostalgia.
Yes, chef, whole milk.
You come into our restaurant, it's full of food, and we get to know each other, and then everyone's family when you leave.
Here you go, thank you.
I really wanted to highlight Filipino breakfast for the cafe menu. Filipino breakfast is pretty big for our culture. You know, it's your straight garlic rice, a protein, and then a fried egg. One of my favorites is the tocino bowl, which is garlic rice, pork belly, like marinated with sweet soy and pineapple and fried egg. It's like a hug in a bowl. The ensaymada, it's one of those things where we added our twist to it. Usually it's like a baked, like brioche dough, but for us we do like a quinaman, which is a layered puff pastry, and then we put black truffle butter on it, and then heavy amounts of cheese. So it's like a sweet and savory type situation. It's really good when you're drinking coffee. For me, like, community is really big because, you know, without community, we can't thrive. It's nice to kind of introduce Filipino cuisine to Washington, D.C., and just keep representing our culture, honestly.
Cold brew and ube, thank you.
Well, that does it for this edition of Fox 5's DMV Shop Spotlight. You can catch up on what you missed or submit an idea for our next series at fox5dc.com. Thanks for joining us.